Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be continuing the conversation talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line and whether or not it will or will not be a problem for the remainder of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady's 2020 season. Now, this is being recorded on October 11th on Sunday night. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see that Thursday night game versus the Chicago Bears, but in my opinion, most of the guys on that offensive line did not have a very good game. Donovan Smith, I thought, had a very similar game to what he had versus the Saints. Tristan Wirfs had his worst game as a rookie so far up to this point. Alex Kappa struggled a little bit with penalties. Even Ryan Jensen got a penalty here or there. And Ali Marpet did fine, in my opinion. Pro Football Focus, actually, fun fact, has Ali Marpet rated as one of the top guards in the entire NFL. Ryan Jensen, I believe, is playing like a top 10 center, and I think even Tristan Wirfs has had a pretty good grade so far this season as well. We'll have to see what that grade is after the Chicago Bears game, and of course, I'm not taking just Pro Football Focus into an account. Just from my own opinion, the offensive line has struggled at a couple of points this season. That Chicago Bears game most recently being the most recent example. It wasn't terrible the whole time. Run blocking has been better the past 2 weeks. Ronald Jones coming off of 2 100-yard games, but pass blocking was certainly a problem. And I said it in the preview week, leading up to that game, that the Chicago Bears have one of the better pass rushes in the entire NFL, and I still believe that, but it was just an extremely frustrating game. Not so much from a, blocking standpoint. There were some problems, even to the point where Tom Brady, just on one sack where he had to give himself up, he just looked up and just went, "Are you kidding me?" to Donovan Smith. It was pretty interesting. If you can go back and see that, let me know. But the blocking, taking that and putting that aside, which wasn't very good, the penalties were the most frustrating thing, in my opinion, from that Chicago Bears game. 11 penalties on the entire game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a team, and I counted, I think, 7 at least from the offensive line. It was so frustrating. I'm still frustrated by it. I'm sure you guys are as well. So, how can this be fixed? Is this going to be a problem for the Buccaneers for the remainder of the season? Because right now we're 5 games into the regular season. Yes, the Buccaneers do have a winning record at 3-2. That's awesome. I love that. At the end of the day, I think the Buccaneers will be fine. But to say that the offensive line, isn't one of our stronger units, I don't think would be a crazy thing to say at all. So just kind of going back and rethinking through all the games so far this year, the 2 games where they've struggled the most, the entirety of the offensive line, was the Saints game and the Bears game. And in both of those games, we saw them not just struggle with pass protection and things along those lines, we also saw them struggle with discipline, overall penalties, how many penalties they were gaining, just drive-killing type stuff. And I think in both those games, the pass rushers were in the head of this Buccaneers offensive line. Now, I said earlier, Ali Marpet, I think he's been playing very well. Ryan Jensen, even though he did have the one foolish penalty against the Bears, which honestly, you could take or leave that penalty. That one was definitely up for debate. In terms of the rest of the offensive line, I think that Ali Marpet, Ryan Jensen have been playing very good. Tristan Wirfs has been playing very good, except for that game against the Bears. The 2 question marks I have on this offensive line is, firstly, Alex Kappa, who I don't think has played terrible this year. I think he's played at around an average level for a right guard. And then Donovan Smith, who in that Bears game and in that Saints game looked very not good, not just in terms of his overall pass protection, but in terms of his penalties as well. I believe he had 3 penalties against the Bears, and I don't remember how many he had against the Saints, but kind of just going back and rethinking through all of these games, I think that so far up to this point, the Bucs offensive line has had 2 bad games, those being against the Saints and the Bears. I think they played pretty good against the Chargers, so 1 good, 2 bad. I think they played all right versus the Denver Broncos, and I think that they played all right to probably good versus the Carolina Panthers. So that's 2 goods, 1 in the middle game, and 2 bads. So overall, that's a pretty average performance for the entirety of the offensive line. Let me know if you guys agree with that assessment down in the comment section below. But what do we do You know, because I've been seeing for weeks now, so many people are upset with Donovan Smith for so many different reasons. Discipline, lack of blocking ability and pass blocking. Sometimes he can't run block depending on the game. What do we do with some of these guys? You know, mainly talking about Donovan Smith because right now he's really the kind of glaring guy in terms of problems for this offensive line. And guys, I'll be honest, I don't know the full answer. Okay, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, we got to put A.Q. Shipley in there. We got to put Joe Hagan there. We got to put Zach Bailey in there. All these suggestions are coming up. But at the end of the day, guys, the Buccaneers are going to be starting Donovan Smith for the remainder of the season. I've seen some people say, you know, put Tristan Wirfs over at left tackle and put Joe Hagan at right tackle. Guys, that simply won't happen. You can't move Tristan Wirfs from right tackle to left tackle after only 5 games in the NFL just because you think there's a chance that he might play all right at left tackle and better than Donovan Smith. Tristan Wirfs is barely getting acclimated to playing right tackle in the NFL, and I think if you move him then to left tackle, pass rushers are going to take advantage of that left, right, and center, and I think that we would see Wirfs probably play worse than Donovan Smith at left tackle right now. You can't bench Donovan Smith for Josh Wells because Josh Wells is arguably the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen in the entire NFL. I have no idea why he's on this team, but he's on the team. I think one of the only things that you can do to support that left side of the offensive line is just put your best blocking tight end over there to help out Donovan Smith and just pray for the best. Because quite frankly, Donovan Smith has not been able to handle things on his own 2 out of the 5 games so far this year. And I know that doesn't sound like a crazy number, but those 2 games where he was bad, he was pretty darn bad in my opinion. So I would assume that the only way to help out a guy like Donovan Smith is to put a tight end over there, hope he can be a little bit more disciplined in his overall play, and then just go from there. And I'm not trying to be overly negative. Again, Donovan Smith, and I'm sure every single guy along that offensive line are good people, and I think that they are going out there and trying their hardest to win football games. I would hope so, because Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, is your quarterback now, so you kind of have to go out there and try your freaking best. Otherwise, you're not going to make the playoffs, you're not going to make the Super Bowl, you're not going to do all these types of things because Tom Brady can't block and then throw the ball. You need to have good offensive linemen out there to help protect Tom Brady. So overall, I think that's the best thing you can do to help Donovan Smith. In terms of helping out a guy like Alex Kappa, I think he's got 2 good guys around him, and I think that his play so far up to this point this year has been serviceable enough, okay? I really think that he hasn't been the main issue along this offensive line. Tristan Wirfs has been fine as well, and Ryan Jensen and Ali Marpet have been good overall this season, especially Ali Marpet. So after taking a look at each of the players there, I kind of thought in my head, well, if they're getting all these penalties, let's take a look at the coaching staff, right? Harold Goodwin is kind of the main guy who works with the offensive line. Byron Leftwich also has some responsibility there as the offensive coordinator. What can those guys do to get more discipline into this offensive line? And I'm not sure. I've never been a coach in the NFL. I'll never be a coach in the NFL. And I don't know what it takes to be disciplined at that level, and I will never know what that's like. But something needs to be done because these penalties are drive killers. It's stuff we've seen from the Buccaneers for years, and something needs to happen in terms of the overall discipline. We even saw Tom Brady himself yelling at the offensive line during that Chicago Bears game at one point, and I think that really having Harold Goodwin, Byron Leftwich, and Tom Brady himself crack down on this offensive line and say that these penalties are not going to stand. We can bench you here, pal, at any time, might instill something in this offensive line. It would work for a couple of guys, I think, but, some guys it might not work. I'm unsure, but something has to be done to work in terms of the overall discipline that this offensive line is going through, because right now it's just way too many penalties in my opinion, and the penalties that they do get are in very crucial moments on very crucial drives, and that can't happen. Playoff teams don't do that. Good teams don't do that. So, this is basically just a rant video at this point, but overall, something needs to change with this offensive line. I don't know if benching anybody is going to help, quite frankly. I don't know how much better Joe Haeg would be than, say, Alex Kappa at right guard. I think that you'd get very similar play. You, quite frankly, can't bench Donovan Smith because there's nobody to replace him with. Moving Tristan Wirfs from the right side of the offensive line to the left side of the offensive line, I think could very easily end in disaster, and it's just something you can't do. So right now, this is pretty much what the Bucs are sticking with at the offensive line. line for the remainder of the season, I would kind of take a look more at the coaching staff and try and figure out how to get these guys to stop getting penalties in crucial moments, how to have them work more as a cohesive unit and gel and build chemistry. And these guys have been together for years now. Donovan Smith and Ali Marpet have been together for 5 years now. Ryan Jensen's been on the team for, I believe, 2 years now. Alex Kapp, I believe, has been on the team for 2 years now. Tristan Wirfs is the only new guy. 4 out of these 5 offensive linemen have been with the team together at least 2 years. So I don't know. I really don't know, guys. And I don't think the offensive line is terrible, but overall it's been an average unit at best. And I think it can play better, and I think it does need to play better for the Buccaneers to have, a better season and a better chance of winning games moving forward. That's just kind of all my thoughts on the offensive line there. But guys, that's really going to be it for this video. Let me know your thoughts about the offensive line down in the comment section below. I know this wasn't necessarily an analysis, more necessarily a rant, but it's just really frustrating after that Chicago Bears game. The Bucs, like I said, they've had 2 really bad games. I thought they had 2 pretty decent games to overall good games, and they had 1 game that was, quite frankly, right down the middle with that Denver Broncos game. So yeah, I would say that the Bears and Saints game were bad. The Broncos game was somewhere in the middle. And then the Panthers and the Chargers game, I thought that they played pretty good. So, guys, overall, let me know your thoughts about this Buccaneers offensive line. Will it or will it not be a problem for the Buccaneers for the remainder of this season? Let me know. In my opinion, I don't think it will. I really don't think it will, but I do think it has the potential to, if these penalties especially are not cleaned up. Again, I'm not even so necessarily as worried about the blocking because, quite frankly, that can be improved on, and Brady can help out with that as well by getting the ball out quicker from his hands. But these penalties, I mean, what's Brady going to do? Brady can't make these guys not commit a false start or a holding. He can't force them to, not do that. So these guys have to go in there and do that themselves. They have to get more disciplined, and they have to work on stopping these penalties that are just flat out drive killers. So, guys, overall, let me know your thoughts about everything I mentioned here down in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.